morning, Packers fans, and welcome back to another, another episode of the Pancakes and Packers Morning Show. I hope everybody is doing great this morning, and today we're going to talk about the most impactful offensive rookie heading into 2024. We didn't focus heavily on that position group overall on that side of the ball, really, despite spending our first round pick there, but that doesn't mean that there isn't going to be some impacts felt, in particularly with that first round pick, as well as some of those guys later on in the draft. And we're going to get into that in a second. But first, we're going to have a little bit of coffee. And today's coffee is actually that we finally got the report of the official signing of the UDFAs. And no surprises here. Same guys we were expecting, the big name ones. Peter Bowden, who long snapper out of Wisconsin, James Esther, the defensive lineman from Northern Illinois, Raylan Gofort from Washington, the linebacker, Jarvian Howard, running back, Alcorn State, Donovan Jennings, offensive lineman from South Florida, which was the guy that I believe had $100,000 of his contract guaranteed and had a $10,000 signing bonus. Trent Jones, the offensive lineman from Michigan, Rodney Matthews, defensive lineman from Ohio, and tight end Messiah Swinson out of Arizona State. So we've got those 8 guys that we signed as undrafted free agents, but that isn't all that we did. We did have a number of guys that were invited to the rookie minicamp. And while I haven't seen any official reports from the Packers on when that rookie minicamp will be, according to WXOW, the ABC affiliate out of La Crosse, Wisconsin, in a report that they had about UW La Crosse offensive lineman Mike Bertoya being invited to the Packers rookie minicamp, they reported that the Packers rookie minicamp was going to be May 2nd to May 4th. So take that with a grain of salt right now, but it does look like really just tomorrow would be the start of the rookie minicamp. I believe I'd previously seen that it was going to be between the 3rd and the 5th. So the second might actually be just like report, integrate, kind of get your equipment, all that stuff. And then we'll actually potentially see some Packers rookies on the field at the Hudson Center on the 3rd to the 5th. So looking forward to seeing a bit of that as we get further into this offseason program. OTAs start towards the end of this month now. We are in May, and it'll just be exciting to have something tangible to talk about a little bit when we get to some of those things. But we're going to go ahead and get right into the main topic today, and that is the most impactful rookie for the offensive side of the ball. So it's easy to make the case that Jordan Morgan is going to be the most impactful. The highest draft caliber you'd think towards the beginning of the draft, those are probably the guys that are going to be the most impactful. And there's a couple reasons why he might be impactful, and that is that he could potentially start at either tackle or guard. Depends on how things work out. They're going to start him off at tackle to see, is he going to be competitive there? But if they decide that they want to roll with Rasheed Walker and Zach Tom out at tackle still, they can kick him inside, and he could potentially compete at that right guard spot, most likely, unless they're considering moving Elton somewhere. But I think their days of moving Elton Jenkins around are limited or numbered. And another thing is that, his impact is going to ripple throughout that offensive line. So if he starts at tackle, that means either Walker is kicking over to right tackle, which I think would be the likely scenario, and Tom is going to move inside. Or if he starts at guard, that means, we've got our tackles on the outside. Is Sean Ryan going to potentially compete at that center position? And then we'll also get a little bit later on here talking to about Jacob Monk, who could potentially be pushing Josh Myers for that spot as well. I'm going to go ahead and start a poll in the chat, and let me know as we get through this, which of the offensive rookies, excluding Travis Glover because he's the latest round and I can only put 4 options on the poll, but of these guys, who do you think would be the most impactful? We'll move on to Marshawn Lloyd now. And Marshawn Lloyd is, it's easy to see that, a skill position guy could potentially have the most impact because, as a viewer, as a fan, you're probably going to see the impact that he makes on the field more readily. But he is going to have a heavy competition in that running back room with Josh Jacobs and AJ Dillon, who are going to probably carry the bulk of the load. But where he might have a little bit more of a use case is as a gadget player. He is fast, and he still has good size and bulk to him, despite being a little bit shorter. But he has the burst, and if he dropped a few pounds, he could be even quicker with that. I believe he ran like 4.47 at 220 pounds, I believe it was, and you could see him being worked into the role in potentially a similar role to that of Irvin a couple of years ago when they had somebody that was dedicated to that role. They tried to do a little bit of that with Jaden Reed last year, but it turns out he's actually a highly important receiver for them on the outside. So you don't want to, outside and the slot. So you don't want to put excess wear and tear on him as a receiver when you could potentially use a guy like Marshawn Lloyd in that role. I do think there is definitely some touches that can get his way. And if he makes the most of those opportunities, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts to kind of supersede AJ Dillon a little bit in his use as the year progresses. The next guy up is Jacob Monk, and Jacob Monk is the center out of Duke, but really played a bit all over that line. And he does provide interior offensive line depth. I think that's going to be the main thing that they have him for. They don't want to have Jacob Monk come in and start right away. That's not the plan. But injuries happen, and the offensive line position is one where injuries are very prevalent because of the just physical nature. Big bodies moving around. It's easy for somebody to roll up on an ankle, or even like in some of the pressing moves that they have. I've seen a lot of torn pectoral injuries, things of that nature. So the likelihood that he could actually get in and play is, pretty strong. But that was backwards. But he could also push Josh Myers at that center position. I think having some more competition in the interior of that line is something that is really important to the Packers. And, they could have Jacob Monk compete at center or either of the guard positions. I just don't think he would compete at the tackle positions. I think he's got too short of arms for them to want him to be on the outside like that. And this next guy that we're going to talk about, I really hope it doesn't come to this, and we'll talk about that. But Michael Pratt, if we're seeing Michael Pratt make an impact on the 2024 season for the Packers, things have gone terribly wrong. Obviously, we don't want to see anything happen to Jordan Love. Knock on a little bit of wood there to make sure that doesn't happen. But he's definitely going to be competing for that QB2 job. I think he has a lot of skills and a lot of talent that he is going to be able to push Sean Clifford for that job. I talked a little bit about it yesterday, or maybe it was earlier this week. I don't recall, but I don't think, Clifford is just going to roll over. He's not he's not just going to let Pratt come in and take his job. But I do think Pratt has the ability to potentially unseat Clifford as the QB2. And then obviously we don't want him to make that impact in 2024, like I already said. And then the last guy that we'll talk about today is Travis Glover. And I don't know that he's going to have much, if any, impact at all. I honestly expect that he's probably going to be somebody that is relegated to the practice squad throughout the season because he is on that Josh Nijman trajectory where he is, big-bodied guy, a little bit lumbering, could use a bit of work in some of his technique, obviously coming from a smaller school like Georgia State. But really, you're looking at 2 to 3 years of a runway before you expect to see this guy make a meaningful impact in the regular season. I think he's going to be clearing away behind guys like, oh man, I can't think of his name now. Luke Tenuta. Also Caleb Jones. These guys who are also those developmental offensive tackles that they've had over the last couple of years they're getting to that point where they are going to, either put up or shut up essentially. And they're going to be more impactful now. Whereas Travis Glover is probably looking at a couple years down the road before he makes that kind of impact. But if you weren't here live and weren't able to get in on the poll, go ahead and leave a comment below. Which of these offensive players do you think is going to make the biggest impact for the Packers in 2024? Obviously, as we talk about later in the week, the impact that these defensive players are going to make, that is probably going to be the more noticeable and felt impact throughout the 2024 season. But again, let me know in the comments which offensive player is going to make the biggest impact. We'll be back tomorrow because tomorrow is the deadline for the 5th-year option for Eric Stokes. So we'll talk a good bit about that. Maybe we'll have some news before that episode actually rolls around. We'll be able to discuss that. But either way, I'll be back tomorrow morning. We'll talk about Eric Stokes. If you have any thoughts or takes on Eric Stokes, you can go ahead and leave them in the comments here as well, and I'll talk about those comments in tomorrow's episode. Thank you, as always, for watching the Pancake and Packers podcast or morning show, and go Pack Go.